feed your brain, feed your soul, and absolutely grow your world. The right leader. That's impact the right way. Many voices, many faces, all this. Many voices. That's impact the right way. Many voices, many faces.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Let's Get It Right with me, your host, Vernon Wright. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at The Right Leader. Hashtag That's Impact the Right Way as well. Make sure that you follow the hashtag The Many Voices of Grit. And as I say often, many voices, many faces, all grit. So as you guys know, those that have watched past episodes of this show, I continue to try to bring to you all as viewers unique individuals that all bring their own stories of grit. Today is no exception, ladies and gentlemen. I have someone here on the show that is going to be yet again another treat for you, and I know that you will enjoy it. Make sure as well, obviously, as we say before, I have said before on previous episodes, to share the episode and pay it forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me today Erika on the show, Erika Garcia. So I want to go ahead and tell you guys that she has a unique perspective that she's going to go ahead and bring to us. She is from St. Louis. So as you may notice on the screen, the title of the episode is called Midwest Grit. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Erika Garcia. Erika, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for the great introduction. So I am Erika, obviously from St. Louis, and I'm currently in the role of Instructional Coordinator, which basically means that I do whatever it takes for kids. So I started my career early as an elementary teacher, and then I moved to middle school. And in middle school, I learned a little bit about the fact that I love the kids, but my philosophy is not necessarily about content. It is about the student. So it was one of those things where I absolutely loved my experience. I served as a reading specialist and then a literacy coach. And then I miss my babies. So I moved back down to elementary school where I became a math specialist. And I find for myself, when I'm teaching literacy, I miss math. When I'm teaching math, I miss literacy, which just goes to show you that, like, it's not about what I teach, it's about who I teach. So this instructional coordinator position became available, and I ran with it. I'm in an amazing district that has this like love for professional development. So it drew me to what I'm doing, because my philosophy is always like, if I am better, then I'm better for kids. So I can't even explain what I do, because every single day is different. But what I will tell you is that if it's about kids, then I do it. So sometimes I am the counselor, and sometimes I'm the principal, and sometimes I'm simply just somebody who sits with kids and tells them how fantastic I think they are. But I absolutely love what I do. I've always told myself in education that if it ever became a job and not my passion, that I would stop doing it. And I've been doing this for about 20 years now. So, and I do it every day with a smile on my face and love in my heart.
That is awesome. So ladies and gentlemen, you see that Erika comes to the show with a wealth of information, background, experiences, and really a love for the profession. And you all that are in education, and those that may not necessarily be in education, but may be friends of those that are in education, you know that education requires those that are really, really, really invested in it to understand the sense of purpose and calling, and Erika is no different. So thank you, Erika. You're in, like I said before, for a treat because Erika's going to go ahead and share some great things with us, and know that she's not just a person of theory, she is a person of action and experience. So with that being said, Erika, shall we go ahead and jump into question number one? Shall we do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. This is awesome. Let's go ahead and jump into question number one. So, Erika, for the viewers that are out there that are watching this, I have a question for you. Question number one, obviously, and that is this. Looking back over your life, over the experiences that you've had, those that have been challenging, those that have made you maybe think about what those things were in real time, as well as maybe looking back in the rearview mirror, right?
Right.
Tell us a little bit about those experiences when you reflect on them, about them having really been grit, but you maybe didn't necessarily understand or know or fully comprehend that they were grit at the time that you were going through.
It's such a good question because we all have our like thresholds for what we feel like grit is. And truthfully, in my opinion, I think about grit and being a challenge. No matter where you are in life or what you're doing, you're going to face these challenges. So my grit, I guess, comes in a place to where I grew up in a place where I didn't have a champion. So being this elementary school kid who had the like look that I had it all together, I didn't. I had no executive functioning skills and my family was struggling like bad. But because I don't fit the description of somebody that looks like they might be struggling, essentially, I had nice clothes, I had nice things, we were saving face essentially. Nobody knew how hard I had it at home, but there were a lot of days where I went home and I didn't have a pencil. So I think about grit in the way that, I didn't have what I need, but I looked like I had what I needed. So as a result, there's this judgment that comes from that. I didn't have this adult that I could say, oh my gosh, this adult is so amazing. In fact, most of my teachers, because I didn't have that executive functioning, they didn't necessarily think of me as this good student. They thought of me as this person who essentially like just didn't try or wasn't putting forth effort, as opposed to this person who didn't have the resources of what I needed in order to be successful. So what that created was them putting me into this compass of shame. That's what I like to call it. When adults push us and they push us into shame instead of empathy. And as a result, I failed. And instead of being able to really advocate for what it was that I needed, because in some ways, especially when you don't have the resources that you need, that can be really humiliating. So as opposed to advocating, what happened was that I would, just kind of, I would be compliant essentially. And I would sit there and I would nod my head and I would just fail over and over again. And that's really uncomfortable. And I didn't love it because essentially what created and what happened was I just became this invisible person, and nobody likes to feel invisible. So in my head, I thought, well, how can I not be invisible? And so I became this funny human being. And like, I'm a child of the 80s, 90s, and believe it or not, funny is not necessarily always appreciated by teachers, but it is by your peers when you're super funny. And the thing about it was, rather than being invisible, I became a troublemaker, because troublemakers always get seen. That's good, right? But it didn't help with my schooling. And one thing I know now that I didn't know then was the fact that auditory processing was not my skill. It's not my strong suit. It's not something that I'm good at. But again, you're in the 80s and everything's lecture based and they're lecturing me and I'm not learning anything, right? So as a result, the teachers are sitting there and they're talking to me. I'm not processing anything, so I'm not learning. But I did love to read and I love to write. So what happened is that I started to read and write. And then as a result of building this background information and this schema, I started to become good at school. But because I had never been good at school before, as a result of what these teachers were giving me, it appeared that like this was coming from somewhere. So obviously like this girl who had not done well before is doing well. So clearly I'm cheating, which was not the case. I just was teaching myself. High school came around and it started much the same. In fact, I was doing well, and multiple times in doing well, despite never opening a book and not having this auditory processing and not having this executive functioning, I would have teachers tell me that, hey, you're super cute. You know what you should do? You should marry rich. You don't need to worry about this stuff. And it breaks your heart as a human being to hear that, because nobody thinks you have it, but inside, you have it. So I have this teacher in high school, and she starts the class off. She's total hippie. Like, she's all dressed out in her hippie gear, and she's burning her incense, and she has us write us a letter, or write her a letter, I'm sorry. And I'm thinking she's just going to be like the rest of the teachers who don't believe in me, who think I'm cheating, who think I'm supposed to marry rich. And so I tell this teacher, like, I mean, most teachers actually, when you start the first day of school, which this is when this teacher asked me to write a letter. And on the first day of school, teachers will tell you, hey, like, tell us about your break. Well, being this person who's poor, who doesn't have resources, I don't want to tell anybody about my break because I didn't go to Fiji. And so this teacher's saying, write me a letter. So I think she's just like the rest. And so I'm like, well, what can I do to kind of like toy with her? What can I do to mess with her? So I write this rap. And in this rap is multiple like cuss words, things that no teenager would ever think to say to their teacher. I write this rap and I submit it. And she calls that night, and I'm like, of course, she's just like the rest. She's going to accuse me of being stupid and being a troublemaker. And she asks to talk to me. And I'm like, me? What? So when she asks to talk to me, I answer the phone, and she tells me I'm brilliant. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, what do you mean I'm brilliant? I'm like, me? Nobody had ever told me I was brilliant before. They had only told me that I was a troublemaker because, essentially I was funny, and I was cheating because I didn't have to open a book in order to master their knowledge-based tests. And so this woman's telling me I'm brilliant, and I'm thinking, well, like, she clearly has the wrong Erika. I hang up on her. I show up the next day, and she convinces me that I'm brilliant. And for me, that changed the trajectory of what I was doing. But like, she only changed the trajectory enough to know who I was, which was huge, because it's not just where that place in high school where my grit stopped. Like, when I became a teacher, because I wasn't this, like round peg that fit into the round hole, I was a constructivist in the time when constructivism wasn't like seen as this personalized learning quest. Basically, people didn't see me as somebody who could be an educator. I knew I wanted to be a teacher because I wanted to be the champion that I didn't have, not just for the underdog, but for all kids. And so being this person who wanted to become a teacher, obviously I enrolled in the School of Education. My grades were good enough because obviously, like, I cheated, right? No, I'm kidding. But, like, my grades were good enough because I was able to do the work that nobody thought I could. And and even in college, people would tell me, like, you will never be a teacher. You will never be a teacher because you don't do things traditionally. And so I stuck with it because I knew that everybody that I faced, my kids, the students, needed somebody who thought outside the box. Because had I had that teacher, that high school teacher in elementary, I wonder how it would have changed the trajectory of what I had done in all of those years. And honestly, I make up right now for a lot of the background information that I didn't have back then as a result of not having a champion.
So, man, that is phenomenal. That is great. I mean, you take someone who, and there's some really, really, really important parts that I know are resonating with viewers as they watch this, right? I mean, this is awesome. I wish that we didn't have time constraints on this episode and we could go on much, much, much longer and go even deeper into it. But I do want to say this before I go to the next part of the interview here. And that is this: you had what people would call the look. There was this appearance of really having it together, but at the same time too, on the inside, you were anything but having it together. And what you intended to be really in jest to your teacher was really something that unlocked your potential. And I want viewers to really think about that and to think about how life connects you with really what is your destiny and your potential. And that's what happened there in your life. What you intended to mean for just jest as a joke, right? In jest, I should say, turned out to be the very thing that connected you with someone that believed in you. And that's just absolutely phenomenal. I know I use that word on episodes all the time, and I know it may sound cliche, but it's interesting how a rap that was done in jest was the very thing that connected you with someone that became, as you have said here on the episode, your champion. So let me go ahead and say this. We have roughly about 2 minutes left in the episode, and I want to go ahead and jump forward to the last question. This has been a very engaging and rich conversation, and I think at some point in the future, we might go ahead and see if we can have you back again to go even deeper. With about 2 to 3 minutes left in the episode that we have here, we come to the last question, which those that watch the episodes know I call it letters from the future. If you were able to get in a time machine and go back in time and give your younger self a letter with roughly about 2 minutes left, what wisdom, guidance, and really just understanding would you communicate to yourself in that letter?
Great question. You know, the thing about being in education is the fact that like we get a time machine because there's students that show up every single day that have a story that's similar to ours. And I have students who show up in my office and they start talking and I'm like, you're me. And they don't believe it because here I am, this instructional coordinator in an amazing school district. And they're like, no way. But when I start to tell them why they do the things that they do, they're like, yeah, you totally get it, right? And I'm like, yeah, you know. So I feel like in a sense, being an educator and still being so close to kids, I get a time machine every single day. And so I think about this student who I have who we'll call C, and C comes to me and she tells me all of the things that I would have told somebody back then if somebody would have listened. And the thing is that I tell her all the time that the fact is that like it's okay not to fit in. It's okay to stand out. Like it's okay to be funny. You just have to learn how to use it. It's okay to be smart in an unconventional way. You just have to learn how to apply it. It's okay to say I'm hungry and I don't have a snack. It's okay to say I want to do my work, but I don't have a pencil. Like you have to have that person that you need to be able to like to tell those things to, because if you don't have that person, then essentially you probably aren't going to be as successful as you could be if you do have that person in which you can trust. And so I think about the fact that like here in this field of education and where we are, when I think about the idea of grit and giving our kids grit, it really is about being their champion. It's about being whatever they need us to be in the time. So I'm an instructional coordinator, but like I said, there are times when I'm the counselor and there are times when I'm the principal and there are times when I'm literally just a friend to somebody who needs it, who's sitting in my office telling me about something that essentially may not feel big in my world, but it's big in their world. So I think if I were able to jump into a time machine, I would literally go back and find that champion for myself, because that's what's important, is having that somebody. And so my goal always is to be that somebody in which somebody can look to say, hey, you're an adult, but you get it, because that's what I didn't have for so long. And that's what I needed.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to stop and think about that. We know that curriculum is a part of teaching, understanding your content, the different elements of instruction. But when it's all said and done, ladies and gentlemen, think about what Erika just shared with us. An adult that gets it. That's what matters with students. And as the saying goes, people will be more invested and interested in what they know and what you know when they know that you truly care about them. So understanding the needs of individuals, our students as human beings, before we look at Bloom's taxonomy and all that goes along with instruction. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, an absolutely awesome, once again, episode here on the Many Voices of Grit and Let's Get It Right with me, your host, Vernon Wright. I just want to say publicly here on the episode, thank you, Erika, for being on the show. It has been absolutely wonderful. And certainly, I think that there might be a future with your being on the episode again. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Make sure you share this episode and pay it forward with colleagues and those that you know will take away from this something that will help them in their professional and personal lives. You see the title here is Midwest Grit, and we have Erika to thank for that. So until we meet again, until the next episode, remember, feed your brain, feed your soul, and absolutely grow your role. That's impact the right way. See you next time.
Feed your brain, feed your soul, and absolutely grow your role. The right leader. That's impact the right way. Many voices, many faces, all great. This